Elizabeth Warren officially launched her 2020 campaign, and in her speech here, she hammered away on economically populist themes. So let's listen, and then we'll come back and I'll break it down.
But over the course of a generation, the rules of our economy have gotten rigged so far in favor of the rich and powerful that everyone else is at risk of being left behind. Listen to this. In the 1940s, 90% of all kids were destined to do better than their parents. By the 1980s, the odds had slipped to 50-50. And now we could be the first generation in American history where more kids do worse than their parents. And meanwhile, the rich and powerful seem to break the rules and pay no price. No matter what they do, they grow richer and more powerful. Bailouts for bankers that cheat, tax cuts for companies that scam, subsidies for corporations that pollute. That's what a rigged system looks like. Too little accountability for the rich, too little opportunity for everyone else. Now, when I talk about this, some rich guys scream, class warfare. Well, let me tell you something. These same rich guys have been waging class warfare against hardworking people for decades. I say it's time to fight back. Yep. To protect their economic advantages, the rich and powerful have rigged our political systems as well. They bought off and bullied politicians in both parties to make sure that Washington is always on their side. Some of them have even tried to buy their way into public office. So today, our government works just great for oil companies, defense contractors, great for private prisons, great for Wall Street banks and hedge funds. It's just not working for anyone else. Now, we all know the Trump administration is the most corrupt in living memory. But even after Trump is gone, it won't do just to do a better job of running a broken system. We need to take power in Washington away from the wealthy and well-connected and put it back in the hands of the people where it belongs. Right now, giant corporations in America have too much power, and they just roll right over everyone else. We need to put power back in the hands of workers. Make it quick and easy to join a union. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class. And make American companies accountable for their actions. Raise wages by putting workers in those corporate boardrooms where the real decisions are made. Break up monopolies when they choke off competition. Take on Wall Street banks so that the big banks can never again threaten the security of our economy. And when giant corporations and their leaders cheat their customers, stomp out their competitors, and rob their workers, let's prosecute them. And one more thing. I am tired of hearing that we can't afford to make real investments in child care, college, and Medicare for all.
Got to keep it real, dude. She gave a great speech. She really did. There was a lot of policy substance in her speech. So I watched the whole thing. You only saw a little snippet there. There are hints of possibly themes that I think would undermine her chances and make it a lot more difficult for her to win. But the bulk of the speech was Elizabeth Warren being really wonky and talking about, her wheelhouse, which is Wall Street regulation, the economy in general, and income inequality. And, you heard, there's a little piece you heard there about corruption, and she did propose a really powerful anti-corruption bill, which she deserves a lot of credit for. So, I said this before, I'll say it again, is if Elizabeth Warren tells her shitty, overpaid, centrist advisors to fuck off, and she just goes with her instincts, she is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But, there's plenty of indication that she's not going to do that, and she's going to listen to her strategists, and they're going to tank her campaign. I need you guys to understand something. Democratic strategists in Washington, D.C. are the least effectual people in the world. Like, they're the worst. I've never seen, a category of people, a profession, where everybody is so consistently dead wrong, yet they keep getting hired. A lot of people who are being hired by many of the Democratic candidates for 2020 are, leftovers from Hillary Clinton's campaign. And Hillary Clinton literally ran the worst campaign in modern American history. I don't even think it's close. I mean, you lost to a buffoon of a human being. A reality show clown who got caught on tape saying, grab him by the pussy, and was released a few weeks before, or like a week or so before the election, and you still couldn't win. I mean, just everything Hillary Clinton's campaign did was dead wrong. But understand that the conventional wisdom in Washington, D.C. is that, no, the problem, if anything, in Hillary's campaign isn't that she was too centrist and too boring. The problem is that she wasn't centrist enough. She wasn't boring enough. So they still, to this day, scoff at lefties, even though, the track record of the centrists is abysmal, and they've gotten destroyed and wiped out, lost 1,000 seats under Obama and under Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. And they don't understand that it's this populist left insurgency, Justice Democrats, DSA, Our Revolution, so on and so forth, that this is what really led to the groundswell and the giant turnout in the last election. So they're still lost. And Elizabeth Warren has been in Washington a little bit too long, where she feels like, oh my God, I got to listen to them. My instincts aren't great. And the best evidence of that is when she was asked on, I think it was either MSNBC or CNN, after we had learned that the primary was effectively rigged against Bernie Sanders, she was asked about that like the same day, and here's what her answer was. Hey, Liz, was the primary rigged against Bernie Sanders? Yes. That was her answer. So I did a segment like, okay, yeah, she nailed it. She's right. And this shows you her instincts are actually very populist and not part of the DC conventional bubble wisdom. But then cut to a few days later, and she was basically doing an apology tour where she was like, well, did I say rigged? What I meant to say was what had happened was the sun was in my eyes and the tide came in instead of went out. And I was, maybe not rigged. And that's Elizabeth Warren right there. So Elizabeth Warren, she got a lot of shit, I think rightfully so, when she didn't endorse Bernie in the 2016 primary. And because everybody was saying to her, your politics are much more aligned with Bernie Sanders than with Hillary Clinton. So what are you doing? Why are you playing politics? Well, there's an answer for that. The answer is everybody was convinced, especially in Washington, D.C., there's no way this old socialist Jew, Bernie Sanders, is going to beat Hillary Clinton. So basically, if you come out and endorse Bernie Sanders, you're shooting yourself in the foot for having any sway in the guaranteed next administration, which is the Hillary Clinton administration. Elizabeth Warren still wanted to have some sway over Hillary's administration, so she's like, I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot and endorse the guy who I know is going to lose, so I'm just going to, lay back, not endorse anybody, and then when the time comes, I'll pretend to be all enthusiastic about Hillary Clinton when the primary's over. So that's what she did. But the problem with that, Liz, is that you played politics and everybody sees through you. Everybody knows you philosophically agree much more with Bernie, so you're playing politics. This was Machiavellian nonsense behind the scenes to not endorse Bernie. So people got mad at you, and they were right to get mad at you. Now, I get her reasoning as to why she did what she did, but understand it's still a It's still the exact same thing about politicians that people hate about politicians, which is we know that when you shut that door, you're scheming and you're plotting and you're not being honest and upfront and wearing everything on your sleeve. And that also, by the way, is why Bernie Sanders is why he's so beloved, is that everybody knows that when you close the door and you're standing there with Bernie Sanders, there's a 99.9% chance he's saying the same shit he said when he was out there on a stage in front of 70,000 people. So, I mean, that's big. That's big. But listen, Elizabeth Warren, I don't agree with people who want to like write her off as a complete corporatist, because that's just not true. She's just not. I mean, I think it's fair to say she has one foot in the establishment camp, one foot in the lefty camp. But I do think that her instincts and where her heart lies, and that's an important point. Some people might scoff at that and say it's goofy. It's really not. Where her heart lies is much more with the Bernie Sanders philosophy, with an FDR philosophy. She's definitely a reformer. She's definitely leaning in a social democratic direction, and she's not just, doing a little song and dance. Like, I think somebody like Kirsten Gillibrand, for example, Cory Booker, like they're co-opting the language of the left, and they have 0% commitment to that ideology. Best case scenario, like 15% commitment to that philosophy. Whereas Elizabeth Warren, I think it's a genuine, like 75% commitment to that philosophy. So I don't put her in the same category as the establishment Democrats, but you also don't put her with the real deal Holyfield, which is Bernie Sanders, because if she really was the kind of person who's with Bernie Sanders, she would tell her strategists to fuck off more often, and she would go with her instincts, which are a lot more populist than the elitists in D.C. But it's possible that she's a force to be reckoned with if she doesn't overthink things. Listen, naturally, Elizabeth Warren is a likable policy wonk grandma. If she allows herself to be that likable policy wonk grandma, she'll do well. But the problem is, and others have pointed this out, when she tries to, I'm going to get in the mud with Trump, and I'm going to out-Trump Trump. No, you're not. No, you're not. Nobody's going to out-Trump Trump. Trump is Trump. By definition, he out-Trumps everybody else. So you can't do that. You have to be who you are, which is a lovable policy wonk grandma. And Bernie's the best at that because he doesn't care. If Donald Trump calls Bernie Sanders crazy Bernie to his face, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care what this idiot is saying because he actually thinks this guy's a fucking idiot. So Bernie will be out there and he'll still be saying the same things, hitting the same stride. Why is it? Oh, if it's crazy to say that the 29 million Americans who don't have health care deserve health care, Bernie, then call me crazy. Because here's what I'll tell you. I'll tell you right now, they deserve health care. And you have undermined that, and 7 million people have lost health care under your administration. So he's going to stick to policy. If Elizabeth Warren can do the same, she'll be a force to be reckoned with. But I'm pretty sure she's going to fuck it up, and she's going to continue to misstep because she's listening to her idiot advisors. The other point is, and I've brought this up before, we got to do maybe a poll. I'll think about it, but I'm curious what the audience thinks because there appears to be like a split. I mean, my audience overwhelmingly favors Bernie Sanders, and that's no surprise to anybody. But there does appear to be a split of Tulsi or Elizabeth Warren for second, and I think that's a reasonable question. Because you're going to have to create your hierarchy. Okay, who's our favorite? Well, mine is Bernie. But then who are your insurance policies? Or your insurance policy? So I wish we had ranked choice voting, man. All this would be so... I mean, how much better would voting be if we had ranked choice voting? It would be so lovely. It'd be the most wonderful thing ever. And nobody would have to even worry for a split second about Howard Schitz going around, making an ass of himself, but knowing that he's going to chip off like 2% of the elitist Democratic vote, and then as a result of that actually will net help Trump. But if we had ranked choice voting, that whole conversation of a spoiler vote would be gonzo. So it would be, everybody who was all the establishment Democrats who were blaming Jill Stein. Like, okay, if you really believe that, there is a solution. It's called ranked choice voting. She's been pushing for it. You should embrace it if you really are afraid of this spoiler vote idea. But of course they don't talk about it because they're a joke. But yeah, I would be curious to see the results of an actual poll on that. I'll probably do a YouTube poll on that, or YouTube poll, Twitter poll, and I'll see where my audience falls. But you heard it there from Elizabeth Warren, very strong themes. She says and this is something I've said a lot. Has she seen any secular talk clips? Maybe, maybe not. But she spoke about, class warfare. Like the Republicans always accuse the Democratic base of doing class warfare. Class warfare? No. It's the rich and the billionaires and the corporations who are doing class warfare on us. And we're just acknowledging that and fighting back. We didn't start it, bitch. We're just responding. They started it. So that's a point that she made. She hammered away on corruption. She hammered away on the corporatocracy. And then, honestly, to my surprise, very pro-union rhetoric. And she even said, I want workers on corporate boards, which would be wonderful for labor in this country and be wonderful for the middle class. So, but with this and her wealth tax, which I'm sure she spoke about at a different point in the speech, I mean, if she sticks with the lovable grandma policy wonk thing, she will be a force to be reckoned with. So, very much looking forward to the debates and the race, but come on, Bernie. Jump on in, buddy. We're all waiting for it. We're waiting to have that party. We know you're going to jump in. It's just a matter of when, so please do it now.